ARM Holdings, ARM is the ticker symbol. ARM Holdings stock shot up significantly on their future demand that they're expecting. I took a good look at this, and I've been kind of over the past several days looking as to what I could do to take profits on something like this. I think we're going to see a significant move to the downside, and the reason why is we got towards the end of March, the hold-up period from the IPO back in, I think, around September 20th. The lockup period expires in March, and we could very well see some selling from those individuals holding, which would potentially push the stock lower. Now, the thing is, SoftBank only released about 10% of the entire float that they have. 90% are still being held. That's huge. This has really distorted ARM Holdings, ARM stock, significantly. And ARM Holdings stock is way overpriced. We'll break down what I've got. I want to show you a few charts. I want to specifically break down what exactly is ARM Holdings stock worth, given its future revenue, what analysts actually expect, and where it could potentially go. Then you factor in the fact that in March, we could easily see some more volume in selling from insiders because of the lockup. ARM holding stock could easily send lower. Let's jump in and I'll show you what I'm looking at. For those of you who don't know or figured out my trading strategy, I'm a fundamentalist in principle, and I look for distortions. And then whenever there is a distortion, I usually front run it, hoping that within a catalyst event just around the corner, I can profit from this. In this case, ARM stock has shot up significantly since its IPO, and it is way overpriced, although today it has sold off somewhat. The reason being, NVIDIA is releasing their financial earnings tomorrow, the 21st, Wednesday, the 21st of February, and most expect that it's probably not going to be the most robust number. NVIDIA stock, NVDA, sold off a bit today, off its all-time highs. This probably brought ARM stock lower. Nonetheless, it's significantly distorted because of the float, and that's really kind of the big sort of catalyst event. And since we have March just rolling around the corner, it's easy to step in, look at this and say, well, there's no catalyst events for ARM shares or ARM stock to push much higher rapidly because it's already occurred. Therefore, without that catalyst event, what's the next catalyst event? ARM stock is overpriced. You factor in the fact that the float is so low, and all of a sudden there's going to be more float available. Those individuals could take profit, and that could increase volume, and we could see ARM stock go lower. Wanted to take a look at real quick institutional holdings. You can see the breakdown here of institutional holdings, and I thought this was interesting. Way down at the bottom, new positions and sold out positions. Some of the lockup doesn't apply to some of these individuals, but then some of the institutions have stepped in since, so that wouldn't apply. But if you can see, institutions have taken on more new positions. 3-to-4 ratio or 4-to-3 ratio buying versus selling. And you can see other active positions there. I got this from NASDAQ itself, their website, NASDAQ.com, for ARM stock. And what I was really looking for was those shares that are closely held, that are available. Of course, NASDAQ didn't have that information. But I've read enough analysts out there that are basically saying, yeah, this is something we're very sort of focused on. The other thing is, a lot of the analysts, the average take profit was sub 100. Well, it sold off, ARM stock sold off today down to about 120. It was in the teens, 118, 119, down from about 135 last week, 137, 140 in that range. ARM stock, of course, moving down with NVIDIA, and that could be a catalyst event itself. So in here, I'm showing the picture. You could see the big move higher. 165 was the high. Now, my strategy, how I'm going to do this. I'm looking at April. I want to say it's April 16th. I can't remember the exact date on that for the option expiration. It's the roughly second or third week of April. I'm looking to sell 150 calls. I'm looking to buy 100 puts on ARM stock, both expirations. Selling the 150 calls on ARM stock, about $10, $10.25, somewhere in there, and I have the numbers here. I'll show you in just a second. Buying the puts, the 100 puts on ARM stock, about a $10.25. So if I sold those calls and brought in 10.25 and I bought those puts bringing in 10.25, it's called a risk reversal, one of my favorite weapons. I don't see too much in the way of a catalyst event that would send ARM stock higher. But I could certainly argue that we could see it moving lower. And that's sort of the catalyst for me to get in. Now, breaking down the fundamentals. All right, here are the quarterly revenue numbers, but ARM Holdings has told us that they're seeing higher demand. And I factored that in 2024. So 2023, 383 billion, 2024, 393, 2025, you're looking at 419 projected revenue for ARM Holdings. Okay, so we're seeing some increases. But take a look at 2024, 2025, 2026. This is where I really focus. And I ask the question, what is ARM stock worth? If you use the $2.08 and you divided that over the current price of 120, which that's 2 years in advance. I'm just saying, what if it was $2.08 this year? It is not. Clearly, you can see the numbers. I've seen ranges between 140, 145, 149 is probably the high I've seen. If it was $2.08, that would be, it's priced at 1.71% yield. 2024 is much lower. Here's a breakdown. Treasury yield, 4.25%. That's your benchmark. The U.S. 10-year Treasury is your benchmark. You could lend the money to the U.S. government, 4.25% over the course of the next 10 years. Not a bad interest yield. S&P 500 yield, 4.831 right now. Just sub 5%. SOX, the semiconductor sector ETF, 3.20. But then when you start looking at 2024 earnings per share projections for ARM stock, $1.49, you see the price and you see the yield, 1.242%. All right, fine. Throw the 208 in there. It's not that much prettier. Now, ARM stock, what would be a good target if you were looking for a 5% yield? And there are stocks out there that are yielding 5%. The target price is $29. Would we actually see ARM stock trading at $29? Probably not. But the way I see it, just by looking at this bigger picture, ARM stock is so disproportionately overvalued. Plus we have NVIDIA that could potentially sell off even more. I look at this and say the upside for ARM stock to move higher, the probabilities are lower than a move which is more than likely to move downward for ARM stock. It's because of the float, because SoftBank only released 10%, that has really skewed the stock price for ARM to move higher. But that's not a guarantee that it will necessarily move downward, because after all, there's only so much float there. Still, with the lockup period finishing in March, we could see a bigger amount of float showing up from insiders being able to sell. We'll see how that plays out. Here is the actual breakdown. The 150 16 April calls, 10.25. the 116 April puts for ARM holding stock, 10.15. So if I sold those calls, I'd actually make 10 cents. So it's a credit. My take, we don't see 150. Maybe we see a move lower from 120 down to 110. What will happen is those ARM stock 150 16 April calls will probably shrink down to about $5. The 100 puts might move upward to about $12.50. That means I made $7.50 on that trade. I'll take that money so fast you wouldn't be able to see my hand move and hit the button. As an options trader, I'm always in that kind of mode where I'm looking for those kinds of profits quick, then get out. Because I've seen options trades where you're like, yeah, that's it. I'm going to crush it on this one. And then it immediately turns around. Once I'm right, I'm out. Nonetheless, ARM stock itself, ARM Holdings, the stock, it's overvalued, overpriced. And it's because of such a small float where we're getting more supply of shares. And I'm going to take advantage of this. Make sure to hit that like and follow button. If you're looking for written content on this kind of trade, make sure to hit the link down below to my website. We'll see you in the next video.